What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Coding with Kevin. Today we are going to talk about an easy way to Dockerize your full stack React app. That means if you got React front end, Node.js on the back end, and whatever you're using for a server, SQL, MySQL, Postgres, MongoDB, you name it, we'll show you an easy way to go ahead and integrate it. I'm going to be using MongoDB, and I'm excited to share it all with you. Before we jump into things, give this video a thumbs up if you find it valuable, hit the subscribe button down below if you're not already subscribed, and let's go. So to begin with, I actually have an app pre-built that I wanted to Dockerize, thus making this video, but I do actually plan to make this app into a tutorial. I'll show you real quick. It is a journal app where we have a list of journal entries that will display a title, tags, body, the created by. We'll also have a create section and then a search section, so you can type in things like happy or date or things like that. You'll be able to remove them one by one as well. So I'm going to shut this down. I have the server running here, which we can see ran a couple calls. Shut that down, and then I have the npm run start for the React app. Go ahead and close that, and we'll just give this a clear. So to begin with, right, as a typical React app, we have our node modules, we got a public folder, a source, I've added a get ignore, and we have package.json and a readme. As a full stack app, I have a server where I am utilizing a connection to MongoDB. I'm not going to show you that right now because I don't have my password hidden, so I recommend you do that, and we'll actually go through on doing that when I create that tutorial. So to get things started, we're going to right click, create a new file, and type docker-compose.yml. Now YML is a YAML file. Now, once we get in here, I'm going to pretty much assume you have a base level of knowledge with Docker. If you don't, then you probably shouldn't be watching this because I'm not going to go through what Docker is, how to install it and everything. I'm going to assume you've already got Docker Desktop installed. You understand a little bit on the Docker API as well as Docker Compose. So if that's you, we'll move forward. So a Docker Compose file is going to have first a version, okay? I'm going to use version 3 just because. Next is you're going to have a services section, and these services are essentially going to be your folder structure, okay? So we're going to create, and we'll actually do it down here in the terminal. So we're going to make directory. We're going to call one Nginx and one client and one server. Hit enter. Now we can see that it populated a server folder, an Nginx folder, and a client folder. Now I actually did just quick remove my password so I can show you why we're about to do what we're going to do. We're going to talk about connecting to a MongoDB, and we're going to actually write this file together. But what I want us to be able to do is to actually have some API calls that are strictly directed towards the server, okay? So we can see right now, our app.posts, our get, our post, they're just doing a /search. We're going to go ahead and quickly do a /API. So we're going to do /API /API /API. And we're going to go ahead and edit those quick in my app. So I got my fetch. We're going to do API, save, have my create. API, And then I have my search /API. Now this is also what you will be doing as well. So this is a great time to pause. And if you do have API calls in your server.js, you're going to want to go ahead and edit those, because that will be important for helping our server to receive the proper calls. All right, so I'm just making sure I have everything. Perfect. So with our navbar, however, we are going to, in the app, right, you can obviously leave it however you're going to, but we're going to use the link tag from React Router DOM, and we're going to go ahead and just leave these the same, because I want the client to be able to continue to navigate by itself, but I want separate API calls to be directed towards the actual server. And so I'm going to collapse that. We're going to go back to our Docker Compose YAML. So our first service is going to be Nginx, okay? That's Nginx. That is a middleware that is a Docker image. It allows us to set a couple ports and just some logic to be able to help us say, hey, if there is a /API, then go ahead and make sure that routes to the server. If there's not a /API, we're going to assume that's just navigating in the client itself. And that way we can continue to keep that logic on the client side, and anything with /API, we'll have it directing towards the server side. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is restart always. The thing I want to do there is if it crashes for some reason, it will use this line and automatically go ahead and restart itself. So that way, if we do upload this to a hosted site, we can expect this to continue working even if it does crash at one point. That's why we're also going to use node mon as a dependency. Next, we're going to do image, and we're going to have it on the following line, Nginx latest. This is exactly how you would go ahead and do an npm install. If you wanted something, you would do npm I nginx latest. We're going to have the build as the next line. Now we're going to have Docker file, and it's going to be called dockerfile.dev. Now we're not quite there yet, but essentially in our Nginx folder, let's just go ahead and do that now. We'll create a dockerfile.dev. Okay, and then we're also going to have a default configuration there as well, default.conf. Now we're going to have a couple of things in here. We're going to have something called upstream client. Okay, and this is now Nginx configuration code. This is essentially how we are going to be able to tell it where to direct the calls. So we'll have our server client on port 3000. And then now we're going to have upstream API. And then we're going to have our server API 5000. Next, we're going to have some server configuration where we're going to say, hey, we want you to listen on port 3051. Our server name is going to be localhost. And now we're going to set our location for directing calls. First, we're going to set a bunch of proxies. Oops. And we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. these are just again, some configurations. If you want to learn more about what they actually do, I highly recommend you go in and just Google, hey, what does Nginx proxy set header this do, and blah, blah, blah. But these are just some basic configurations I got off of the Nginx site and just some experience. First one is going to be called x-real-ip. And we're going to set that to remote address. All right, the next header is going to be x-forwarded-4, and we're going to set the $ to proxy_add x_forwarded4. Now, real simple. The x.ireal-IP address is essentially the client's IP address. Now, Nginx is often deployed as a cluster behind a load balancer. And when you have something like that, we need to be able to configure the IP address correctly in the logs of the backend servers. So x-forwarded4 allows us to go ahead and do that. This essentially will forward the correct IP address for the client to the backend. The next couple ones, you can definitely just Google yourself, but we're going to do forwarded4, and that one is just going to have scheme, right? It just sets the type of forwarding to scheme. Host is going to be http_host. That one's pretty self-explanatory. And the next one is Nginx-proxy, and that one is true. Make sure you follow this casing here. You're gonna need that. Next, we're gonna set proxy_redirect off, proxy_pass. So we're gonna do http:/client. We're just gonna keep moving forward. Location, sockjs-node, proxy pass http client, proxy_http version 1.1. Make sure you spell stuff correctly. Proxy_set header, set_header. We're going to do upgrade http_upgrade. And finally, proxy set header connection, double quotes, upgrade. All right, then the last location that we're going to set is location /space/API rewrite API wildcard. Right, so we're going to do /API//paren and then the wildcard, the .wildcard. Space $1 and then break. Really simply, this is that logic that I was just mentioning, where anything with the /API is going to essentially get filled in with the directed API, and then we're going to proxy pass that to http://API. All right, so our base configuration with all the headers. This is an internal thing with Nginx that allows us to keep things on the client side. And then this is where we tell it to take anything with /API. We're using Nginx internal API to do this, rewrite it with the actual API call that we're going to pass. So now we move forward. So the next thing we need to do is make sure our API is configured to be on port 5000. Now you probably already have done something like this, just because when you have a full stack app, you need to do something like this. So port 5000, if you have a proxy in your package JSON, let's go ahead and remove that. We're going to save. And the reason why we do that is because by default, when you do npm run start, React is built to run on port 3000. So we're going to go ahead and keep that there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set some more configuration in our docker compose.yaml. Actually, let's go ahead and just build this out. It's pretty easy. In our Docker file, we're going to do from Nginx, bada boom, and then we're going to copy our relative path to default.configuration, and then we're going to put it in etc/conf.d/default.configuration. Right, and anybody who's familiar with Docker will know that we're essentially just copying this file and replacing it here. So if there is something already here, we're going to go ahead and overwrite it. But if there's not, we're just going to go ahead and put that file there. Now we'll go back to our docker compose.yaml and build out the rest of this file for Nginx. So we have our Docker file. Our context needs to be /Nginx, right? The relative path. Next, we are going to have our ports, and we're going to hit enter. And the ports need to be a string, which we're going to do 3050:3051, right? So essentially, this is going to allow the client to run on 3050, and then in our configuration, we have our server listening on port 3051. So it connects both of them. Here we go. And then we're going to have depends on API and dash client. So that's our setup for our Nginx, okay? That's probably the most complicated part. Now we're gonna go ahead and build out our API, which again, if you're familiar, you need to make sure the tabs are in the correct places. And what I mean by that is our YAML file is read by tabs. So we need to make sure our services and version are in the same tab index. Then our Nginx needs to be under that. And then these need to be tabbed properly under Nginx. Now, API is part of the depends on, right? So Nginx depends on the API and the client that we're about to write. So we're going to build our Docker file, and that's going to be another Docker file.dev. And context is going to be server, right? Because that is what we're going to call the folder that we have here. So now what we need to do is go ahead and bring all the server stuff into here and get that set up. All right, so first we're gonna bring over the server.js and put it in that folder. Yes, I'm sure I wanna move that. We're gonna create a separate package.json. All right, and then in there, we're going to have to build this pretty much on our own. So dependencies is going to be a object, and then we're going to need to look, okay, so we're going to need mongoose, cores, and express. So let's go ahead and type that in. Mongoose. That's the nice part about VS Code. Like I literally just hit enter and it hit the version number in there for me. So now we're going to do cores, and then we're going to do express. Boom. So all that's in there. Let's make sure. Do we need anything else? I don't believe so. Oh, we're going to need node.mon. Bada boom. And again, you're just going to be careful and make sure you double check everything. If you're using MongoDB, you're going to want to import that. I'm using Mongoose for this. Yeah, I believe I'm good from there. You're also going to want to add Docker compose. And yeah, I believe that's it. So the reason why we're going to want Docker compose is because actually, we might not need that. We might just be able to do a docker file.dev. So yeah, let's get rid of Docker compose. I was thinking too far ahead. So next we're going to write the scripts. And simply we're going to have a dev of node.mon. Oops, sorry, it needs to be in quotes. And then a start of node.mon server.js. Boom. There is our package JSON. Now from here, we're going to need to create our dockerfile.dev. And we're going to want to write a bit of code. So from node latest, and we're going to create a work directory. Next, we're going to copy over our package JSON. Sorry, it needs to be a all right, so we're going to be copying over our package JSON, and we're just going to place it in the relative directory of app. Then we're going to run npm install. Okay. Then we're going to run, capital letters, my apologies, start, or npm run start. And we might have to do some troubleshooting live. I'll go ahead and do that with us here if we run into that. You know. Now we're going to go ahead and finish this build out. So we're going to go ahead and create a volumes where we're just going to have simply our relative path to server and attach that to app. And then we're also going to have a / app node modules. Not exactly sure if this is needed because we're gonna npm install, but I imagine this will be needed, so we're gonna go ahead and keep that. We're gonna add an environment variable. And this is where you can actually set your password, your user, some default things. So if we wanted to set our MongoDB user, right, you put in your username, and then the same for our password. Right, so this is exactly just where you would put it. Finally, we are going to get onto building our client now. So we're going to build our dockerfile.dev. Context is going to be relative path to the client folder. And let's go ahead and build out the client. Now this should be pretty easy. We're gonna go ahead and take our node modules, our public, our source, and then all of this, and we're gonna drag it up into the client folder. It's gonna ask you, do you wanna move all that? And it might take a little bit, especially since I already have node modules built out. It's gotta move all those files over. So we'll give it a sec and let it do its thing. All right, so my thing ran into an error, so we're gonna do rm-rf node modules. That'll help us get rid of that folder, and then we'll just have to do a fresh install once we go ahead and move everything on over. We also might have to do a node modules install in the server folder as well. That's part of the troubleshooting that we might run into. So we're gonna go ahead and try copying this on over again. Perfect. So it moved everything on over into the client folder now. And now what we're gonna have to do is cd into client, do npm I, and we're gonna let that do its thing. And then we're just gonna make sure that React still runs. I believe it will, but this is, again, just when you're Dockerizing your app, you're gonna wanna verify things at each point. The server.js, I'm pretty sure that will run. We might, just to be safe, copy over the node modules. We're not actually copying it over in our dockerfile.dev. So that will actually save us some runtime. It's going to go ahead and install it on its own. Typically, if you do just like a fresh, what some people will do is they'll, copy everything over. This single dot means everything in that folder, and they'll copy it over there. That will include the node modules, which again takes just a really long time. So now that we've done that, let's do npm run start. We'll make sure that React still works and this builds. Okay, perfect. So this is exactly what I'd expect. We are waiting because there is no API call happening right now because it's targeting a different, it's expecting it to be in the same folder, but it's not there and it's not running. So that's what I expected to happen. So that's perfect. All right, we're gonna shut that down, clear, and we're gonna move on. All right, so back in our compose YAML, it was my bad. We actually need to move this back up to the top level. All right, so volumes, similar to the API, we're gonna do app node modules, client :/app. So what I believe this does is this binds our node modules in these folders to the node modules in app. And then this will also bind our client folder to the folder of app that we create using Docker. So we might actually see the app node modules, might see a node modules appear in server anyways, because it's binding to it. All right, so we're gonna do a command of npm run start, and then tty of true. All right, we're gonna save that, and now we need to go ahead and create our Docker file in our client. So we're gonna right click, oops. Yep, we're gonna right click our click file, dockerfile.dev. So now this one's gonna be a bit different. We're actually targeting Alpine, and that's gonna be different than just targeting the node latest. So we're gonna use the node Alpine because it's just a smaller, image than the official node latest. On the server side, I want all the ins and outs of node to be able to use, because obviously, right, we're writing node code. But in our client side, we're not really writing node code, so I don't need all the intricacies of it. I just need like the base image. So from there, we're gonna create the work directory of app. We're gonna copy our package.json. We're gonna run npm install, and then we're gonna copy over period. So this is where we're gonna essentially copy everything in this folder over to the folder inside app. So now we're gonna save that, and we should be ready to go. So let me just verify a couple things. Let's give it a try. So we should be able to do docker compose up build, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and that's because we're CD'd into the client right now. Service volumes must be a mapping.array. Okay, sweet, let me figure that out real quick. All right, and I can pretty much see right here is our issue. Right, this is why indenting, like I said earlier, is so important. So let's save that. Invalid unsupported config option for services client context. Okay, cool. Let me figure that out. Okay, cool. So I did a couple things wrong. So we need Docker file. Oops, and then our tab there. So like we had it up here, I was going a little bit too quick, so now we have it here. Try this now. No such service, so we might just be able to do docker compose up. And here we go. So we can see right away a node modules was built in the server. That's fine. Starting our development server right now. It's probably doing some npm installing. So we're just gonna let that do its thing until it officially says we're ready. We can see here in the Docker desktop container that these are running, which is good. Bada boom. So Nginx, our API, it's running. So I guess let's try going to localhost 3050. All right, so we can see it's running, which is great. And it's not producing anything because I made some configuration to remove my password and stuff. So let me go ahead and fix that, and I'll just go ahead and show you that it will work. But essentially what it's doing, it's failing because I removed my password because I didn't want to share it with everybody out here on the internet. So let me go ahead and fix that, and I'll be back and confirm it's going to work for you guys. Actually, I'm going to take you along with me, not in changing my password back, but I'm going to show you how I would essentially connect these so we can go ahead and use them in our file. So in our server.js, I'll create a new file. We'll call it keys.js. We'll do a module.export and equals an object. And so we're going to say our Mongo name is going to be our process dot environment dot Mongo underscore name, and that should actually probably just be Mongo user, because I believe that's all we're gonna have, right? Mongo user. So and then this will be our Mongo password. Okay, so we can see here our environment variables for our API, our Mongo name equals Mongo user, and our Mongo password equals password. So now then we're gonna go ahead and import our keys. So we're gonna do here, we're gonna do keys equals, and I typically like having this organized a lot better, but I've got some VS Code setting that is killing me right now on keeping it organized. Like typically what I and a lot of other people will do is line up the equals. So like it should look like this, pretty much straight down the line. We'll see if this does it for you guys. All right, we're gonna require our path to our keys. Boom, right there. Comma. Yeah, see, when I hit save, it does all that. That's all right. So anyways, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna properly put in my username and password. And so then in our server.js, we can go ahead and essentially change this to a backtick at both the beginning and the end. And then in here, we can write two instances of keys.mongo user, colon, and then our keys.mongo pass. And that will go ahead and it'll just allow you to be able to be a little bit more secure in putting stuff in there. So I'm gonna hop off, get that fixed, and then show you it working. All right, so what I found is we actually didn't need to change these to API. So sometimes you just learn stuff as you go. I apologize for saying the wrong thing in the beginning, but we should just be able to get rid of those. It's now listening on the port. We'll do a refresh, see if it works. Not yet. Okay, sweet. So we had a bad authentication. Cool. I'll go ahead and figure that out. But we can see now it actually created an API call to try and make a connection. So let me go ahead and figure that out real quick. Be right back. Okay, so essentially what I had to do is I just had to I just shut down. I did a Docker compose down, and then I redid a Docker compose up and let it rebuild itself. I'm not sure why it needed that, but we can officially see, I'll put this right here, we can officially see everything is being called. So if I go ahead and hit the refresh, we can see here it called get, mongoose disconnected through finish call get, right? And that is just some setup that I had there, but this officially works. And so now whenever we navigate to create or search or anything like that, so like I said, if I do happy and I hit a search, it's going to go ahead and return any of the tags that I have associated with the word happy. And I can create something. Let's do title. We'll do test, tag, test, make an entry, test. And if I click create, we can see right there, it was created, connected to the server, sent it through, disconnected, and it finished the create call. So I hope that was really helpful for you guys today to just see in live trial and error, how can we go ahead and make a React app from just a static full stack to now something that you can actually deploy this in a hosted service, because it will go ahead and do some balancing, load balancing. You could also pair this now with Kubernetes, especially if you have an app that you need a large chunk of traffic to go through. Kubernetes does smart scaling, and you can obviously set that up as you go. But yeah, I hope this was helpful and you guys learned something today. Nice. Yeah, that was super easy. And Docker is just the beginning. If you want to learn how you can load balance your website on things like Google Cloud, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Docker is just the beginning. Then comes Docker Compose, then comes Kubernetes, then comes Cloud Structure. It's a really cool beginner's entry point into the many things you can do with the cloud. So I really appreciate y'all for joining me. Give this video a thumbs up if I earned it today. Hit the subscribe button down below. And until next time, take care.